Welcome to Young Minds and Big Questions. My name is Jared.
I'm Anthony.
We're so glad you're with us. We're excited. Today, we are going to be starting a new series of videos all about arguments for the existence of God.
That's what we're doing. We're really going to do this.
We are doing this,
okay.
And we're excited. Right. We're excited. We should start off by saying no one can prove God's existence, right? And no one can disprove God's existence. However, the whole point of Young Minds Big Questions is to say which worldview makes the most sense.
Right.
And we think when you look at the cumulative case of these arguments in the videos, if you watch them all, there's pretty strong evidence that, in fact, God does exist.
All right.
So let's start with the first one. Today, we're going to talk about the cosmological argument. And the cosmological argument goes a little something like this. There's three premises. Number one, everything that begins to exist has a cause. We observe that every day, right? We understand there's a relationship between cause and effect. So if I walk into my house and there's a couch in the living room, I realize something caused that couch to be there. It
didn't just come in there from nothing.
Didn't just pop into existence out of nothing. Either someone brought it in or they built it or whatever. And that's what we observe all over our universe. Science is based on this idea. So anything that begins to exist has a cause. That's the first premise. The second premise is this. The universe began to exist. Widely agreed by almost all scientists now that the universe came into existence. That's what the Big Bang is all about.
Right.
Premise 3, therefore, the universe has a cause.
Okay.
So it's saying if anything comes into existence that has a cause, the universe came into existence, therefore, the universe also has a cause. And the idea would be that that cause must be God.
So I think the argument is logical. I think the argument makes sense. I think the argument is rational. But I think the first thing people would say in response to that is, well, fine, that might prove that the universe has a cause, but that doesn't prove the cause is personal. That doesn't prove the cause is loving or benevolent. That doesn't prove the God is the God of the Abrahamic religions.
Right. The God that all these people in the world worship. Right. Yeah. This is a common objection. And if you watch debates between atheists and Christians or theists of any kind, this comes up a lot. And I actually think it's a really weak counter argument. And the reason is because that's not even what we're talking about in this argument. This argument doesn't make any attempt to say that the Christian God is the right God or anything like that. This is just saying this points to a God. What that God is like is a whole separate argument. And actually, that's more about theology than it is about what we're talking about.
You're not trying to prove the Christian God or the Jewish God. You're just trying to suggest that there may be a God out there somewhere.
Right. I'm saying this suggests that there is a God, there is a creator, there is an uncaused cause.
Right.
What that God is like is a separate conversation.
Okay. So I think a more substantive objection would be Bertrand Russell's objection. He said, listen, everything in this universe might have a cause, that we see, that we could observe, but that doesn't mean that the universe itself has a cause. Why should we accept that premise that the universe itself has to have a cause? What if the universe is just eternal?
Well, I think Bertrand Russell, if he lived today, he probably wouldn't say that, because nowadays it is widely accepted that the universe did have a beginning. It is not eternal. It had a start. That's what the Big Bang is all about. That space and time came into existence. And so the idea that it is eternal is not one that is held at all today. And if the universe came into existence, there had to be something that caused it. Now, it's important to note this, right? If the universe is material, then what caused it had to be immaterial. Because if material matter came into existence, then the cause of that had to be immaterial, because material didn't exist. If space and time came into existence, then the cause of space and time has to be timeless, has to be eternal, right? And thirdly, if the universe came into existence, that suggests a personal agent because it was created. Someone made a choice.
All right.
Forces don't create or choose to do things. They just govern what's already been.
So I could hear in the back of my mind, Lawrence Krauss and Victor Stinger saying, listen, particles pop in and out of existence all the time, okay? Why should we think the universe is any different?
Yeah, Lawrence Krauss gives this argument a lot, and he actually writes a book called The Universe from Nothing.
Yeah.
And the problem with him is he just simply redefines the word nothing. And he defines it as this quantum vacuum where particles come in and out of existence. But if you listen to any guys like Dr. William Lane Craig or some of these other guys, they will say to you, a quantum vacuum is not nothing. It is not nothing. So when we say nothing, we mean in the plainest way, nothing.
No thing.
There was no thing. Nothing was in existence.
Okay, so what about this notion of an infinite regress? Okay, why couldn't the universe itself have an infinite amount of causes? Why does there have to be a beginning point?
Right. Yeah, the idea of infinite regress, right, is that if you go back and say, what was the cause of me watching this video, there was a cause to that and a cause to that, and you could go back an infinite number of causes, and you're never going to hit a first cause, and just go an infinite number of times. The problem with that is hypothetically true in a philosophical sense
or mathematical
sense, but in reality, in physical reality, it doesn't work. And to help explain this, we're going to bring in the master, Dr. William Lane Craig. Here's a little video clip of him explaining this using an analogy of a hotel. So check this out.
Why the past has to be finite. For example, Ghazali points out that if the universe never began to exist, then the number of past events in the history of the universe is infinite. Think about it. If the universe never began to exist, then the number of past events is infinite. But, Al-Ghazali argued, this is impossible because an actually infinite number of things cannot exist. The way in which Ghazali shows the impossibility of an actually infinite number of things is by imagining what it would be like if such a collection could exist, and then drawing out the absurd consequences from it. Let me share with you one of my favorite illustrations called Hilbert's Hotel, which is the brainchild of the great German mathematician David Hilbert. Now, as a warm-up, Hilbert first invites us to imagine an ordinary hotel with a finite number of rooms. And let's suppose that all the rooms are full. If a new guest shows up at the front desk asking for a room, the manager apologizes, sorry, all the rooms are full, and the guest has to be turned away. But now, Hilbert said, let's imagine a hotel with an infinite number of rooms. And let's suppose, once again, that all the rooms are full. Now, this fact has to be clearly appreciated. There is not a single vacancy throughout the entire infinite hotel. Every room already has a guest in it. Okay? Now, stay with me here. Suppose a new guest shows up at the front desk asking for a room. What will the manager say? No problem, he says. And he moves the guest who was staying in room 1 into room 2. He moves the guest who was in room 2 into room 3. He moves the guest who was in room 3 into room 4, and so on, out to infinity, so that everybody moves into the room number next highest to his own. As a result, room number 1 now becomes vacant, and the new guest is easily accommodated. And yet, before he arrived, all the rooms were already full. Now, if that seems weird, hang on to your hat, because it gets even worse. Let's suppose, Hilbert says, that an infinity of new guests shows up at the front desk asking for rooms. No problem, says the manager. And he moves the guest who was staying in room 1 into room 2. He moves the guest who was in room 2 into room 4. He moves the guest who was in room 3 into room 6, putting each guest into the room number twice his own. 1 into 2, 2 into 4, 3 into 6, 4 into 8, and so on, out to infinity. Now, think about that. Since any number multiplied by 2 is always an even number, all of the guests wind up in the even numbered rooms, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and so forth. As a result, all of the odd numbered rooms become vacant, and the infinity of new guests gratefully checks in. And yet, before they arrived, all the rooms were already full. In fact, the proprietor could do this an infinite number of times and always be able to accommodate more guests. As one student remarked to me after class, Hilbert's Hotel, if it could exist, would have to have a sign posted outside. No vacancy, guests welcome. Hilbert's hotel is absurd. Mind you, it's logically correct for the mathematician, but it's impossible for something like Hilbert's hotel to really exist.
Okay, so if there is no infinite regress in reality, okay, if the universe does have a beginning, all right, maybe that means this universe has a first cause. Okay, fine. But how do you know that this cause itself is eternal? Who created this cause? Where did God come from? So it seems to me like you're just saying everything in this universe has a cause, so we're going to go to something that is necessary, okay? How do we know that thing is actually necessary?
Right.
Why should we believe it's eternal?
Yeah. A simpler way to put it would be, okay, then where did God come from?
Right.
Which is, you kind of hear that.
Who created God?
Who created God, right? The problem with that is, this is a misunderstanding of the argument. The argument doesn't say whatever exists has a cause. The argument says whatever begins to exist, or whatever comes into existence, has a cause.
Okay.
The idea of God is, he is, remember, immaterial. He is spaceless and timeless, meaning time and space came into existence. Therefore, God, who created that, is outside of time. He created time. So he is, by definition and by nature, eternal.
Okay.
Therefore, he's self-necessary. So the argument doesn't apply to God, because it only applies to things that begin to exist.
So the
God
first
did not
cause
begin
has
to exist.
Be necessary and eternal. Why does that being have to be a necessary and eternal agency? Why can't that being just be a necessary force or a necessary impersonal kind of matter? Why does it have to be some kind of deistic or theistic deity?
Yeah, we touched on this a little bit, but I do think there's a strong reason to believe that this God, or this force, to use the word, is not just spaceless and timeless, but it's also personal. And the reason is that personal agents choose to create. You and I make choices, right? I want to make something. You like to make bowls of cereal, right? I'm going to make my Fruit Loops, and then I'm going to eat. Personal agents make choices. Forces don't.
Okay.
Forces just govern, right? The law of gravity doesn't choose, on Monday I'm going to operate in this way, and Tuesday I'm not going to do that because I don't feel like it. They just govern and operate with the material that is in creation or in existence, right? So a personal force would choose to create. An impersonal force would never have that ability. Therefore, the universe would not come into existence at all.
So because we have a universe, it shows some kind of intentionality in your mind.
It points to, again, we can't prove this, but I think it points to the fact that this seems like it is a personal force that chose to bring something into creation, into existence, versus just some impersonal force that has its own laws and is governed by itself.
So if you guys have any objections that I didn't think of or I didn't mention, comment them below and we'll kind of go through them together and see what happens.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Leave us a like, subscribe to the videos. We've got more coming. And if you want to find us on Facebook, Young Minds Big Questions, hit us up on Twitter, YMBQ Podcast, or online, youngmindsbigquestion.com. We'll see you next time.